Hey everyone, today on Northern Revolutions, we're going to talk about my guitars and some records. So stay tuned. Hey vinyl community, welcome to Northern Revolutions. I'm Rob. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new. Today I thought I would do something a little bit different. I know there's a lot of guitar players in the vinyl community, so I thought I would do a video where I talk about my guitars. Because as you can see, I have quite a few. But I thought I'd also do something a little bit different. I thought I would talk about each guitar, and then I thought I would show a record from my collection where you could hear that sort of guitar. So if I show my Strat, I'll talk about an album. It's got a lot of Fender Stratocaster in it. So hopefully it's interesting. Before I do that though, if you could hit that like and subscribe, I greatly appreciate it. And also don't forget, you can follow me on Instagram at northern_revolutions. So let's get into it. So as you can see, I have a lot of guitars. For anyone that's watching my room tour video, that won't come as a surprise. I'll quickly walk you around the room and then we'll talk about each guitar for you guitar players out there. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is my Les Paul. Now, it's my Les Paul. It's not a Gibson Les Paul. It's a guitar that I built. And as I explained in my room tour video, what build means, I'm not a woodworker. I buy my bodies and my necks from a company called Warmoth that are in Washington State. Absolutely incredible quality aftermarket guitar part builder. I buy the necks and the bodies unfinished, and then I stain and lacquer them and polish them, and then I do the assembly, the wiring, do all that kind of stuff. I even put my own logo on the headstocks. So my Les Paul is a little bit different than a normal Les Paul in that it's a bolt-on neck, whereas most Les Pauls obviously are a set neck, and also most Les Pauls are a mahogany neck. This one is bird's eye maple. The pickups in this are Lawlor humbuckers. All my guitar builds that I've done, I use Lawlors. I think Lawlor is the best handmade pickup you could get. They have such a wide array of different pickup options, and they absolutely sound incredible. There's a Tone Pros bridge and tailpiece on there, Kluson tuners. It's a flame maple body. Okay, so since I've just shown you my Les Paul, or my version of a Les Paul, time to show you a record that has a lot of Les Paul in it. Led Zeppelin 4. In fact, pretty much any Led Zeppelin record for that matter. Jimmy Page was a big Les Paul fan. His, as he called it, his number one guitar was either a 1959 or 1960 Les Paul that he played on every Zeppelin recording from 69 onwards. So there's a lot of Les Paul in this album here. So the next guitar here is my American Fender Stratocaster. It has a serial number on the neck of 1983. But for anyone that knows anything about Fender history, CBS sold Fender in 1983 to a group of employees, and it became the Fender Musical Instrument Corporation. There actually was no American production between 83 and the end of 1985, but um, the new Fender, inherited all of the parts that had been built up to that point. So the neck was likely built in 83, but the guitar was not. It's either an 86 or an 87. That's when production started um, at what is now the Fender Custom Shop. I haven't actually pulled the electronics out to check the dates on the pots, but it's either going to be an 86 or an 87. It's all standard. It's all stock. I haven't changed anything on it. Plays fantastic. So for a record that has a Fender Stratocaster in it, I mean, there's two choices that immediately pop to mind: Hendrix or Clapton. I have both. So I'm going to show this one. Clapton's Slow Hand. And the reason that I'm showing this, not only does it have Stratocaster all throughout it, it has a Stratocaster on it. There you go. Looks very similar to mine. It's black and white. That's Clapton's famed Blackie, as he called it. The story, as I recall it, Clapton bought 6 1950s era Stratocasters from Showbud Guitars in Nashville, and he gave a couple away to friends. I think Joe Walsh was one of them. I don't know who else. But the 3 that he kept, he had a luthier sort of take the 3 of them apart and took the best neck and the best body and the best pickups and put it together, and that became Blackie. He played that guitar for a number of years. In 2004, it went up for auction at Christie's to support a charity, and I believe Guitar Center bought it for $950,000, which is crazy. That's, this guitar here. So Clapton is almost synonymous with the Stratocaster. He was a Gibson player early on in his career, but pretty much anything Clapton has done in the last 40 years is a Stratocaster. So there you go. Next up is my ES335. It's an Epiphone ES335. Epiphone is the offshore economy brand of Gibson, I guess you want to say. I love the sound of an ES335, and I actually like how they play. I can't justify the cost of an actual Gibson, so that's why I went with the Epiphone model. A lot of records that I listen to have this type of guitar tone. Some of the early Beatles stuff, well, they were Epiphone Casinos, generally is what John had and George had. George also played the Gretsch Country Gentleman, but they're all similar in tone. Carl Wilson from the Beach Boys had an ES335. Then a lot of sort of Canadian roots rock that I listen to, Blue Rodeo, Dustin Bentall, got ES335s all over it. So because I like to play that kind of stuff, I bought myself an ES335. Although some will argue it's not a real ES335 because it's an Epiphone. I'm sure I probably have some records with an ES335, but I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. Marty McFly plays one in Back to the Future, even though he's in 1955 and the ES335 doesn't come out till 1958, but we'll just ignore that continuity error. Nevertheless, Chuck Berry, I mean, the red one he played most of the time looks similar to that. His had a Bigsby on it. I think it's like a whammy bar for people that maybe don't know what a Bigsby is. Flexes the strings and distorts the tone. I don't have any Chuck Berry on vinyl, so I I got to show a CD. But I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen Chuck Berry play anything other than a 335. Here's another one of my builds. I love Telecasters. This is a 72 Telecaster Deluxe. That's what the model is, but obviously it's not from 1972. It's one that I built. It's a Warmoth body. It's a Warmoth neck. It's just a paint grade alder body with a maple neck with a rosewood fretboard. I love the sound of a 72 Deluxe. That double humbucker sound is great. This particular guitar has Lawler wide range humbuckers, which is Lawler's answer to the original Fender wide range humbucker. They're larger than a normal size humbucker. The current Fender versions do not sound like the originals. These do. They're just a nice meaty tone. I relic to this a little bit to make it look a little worn. What I did is I used a working 3-bolt micro tilt adjust setup on the neck, which I believe the modern Fender 72 Deluxes don't have. Most people aren't a fan of the micro tilt 3-bolt neck, but I wanted to make this period correct, so I did. So I've just shown you my 72 Telecaster Deluxe. I don't think I have any records where someone is playing a 72 Tele Deluxe. The most famous one that springs to my mind is Chris Shiflett from the Foo Fighters. I don't have any Foo Fighters on vinyl. Shame on me. He actually has his own Chris Shiflett signature model. I do have the neck from one of those because I'm building another Tele Deluxe, but I don't know that I have a record that has that on there. This is another build of mine. This is my take on a Fender Jazzmaster. That's, I believe that's seafoam green or surf green. Can't remember. They're almost identical. This has a Mastery bridge and a Mastery tailpiece, which are really nice high-end bridges and tailpieces for these offset guitars. The pickups in here are, again, they're Lawler. These are a Jazzmaster sized P90, so gives it sort of even more of that surf rock tone by having a P90 in there, but it's Jazzmaster sized. The neck is roasted maple with an ebony fretboard and pearl block inlays. So the Fender Jazzmaster is really synonymous with that 60s surf rock kind of music. So I'm going to show this. This is the Beach Boys Surfin' Safari. Carl Wilson and David Marks and Al Jardine had Jazzmasters. They also had Jaguars. A lot of times on stage you'd see them play Jaguars, which is a similar offset Fender model, but they did have Jazzmasters. I don't know what Beach Boys record has a Jazzmaster and which one has a Jaguar. They sound very similar, so for the sake of saying, a Jazzmaster is used for playing surf rock, there you go. Okay, then I've got my first real guitar. It is a Mexican Fender Stratocaster from 1999. I bought it in 2000. I've customized it quite a bit though. I've got it all the electronics. Those are Lawler, I believe they're called Lawler Vintage Blonde Stratocaster pickups. And I've also added a tone circuit in there to give it that sort of super strat tone, where it's an extra tone circuit where you can blend the neck pickup in with all the other pickup configurations. And then I put a black pickguard on it. I don't know how well it shows up on the video. The body's actually midnight burgundy. I know a lot of people hate on the Mexican Fenders, but I like this one. It's always, to me, played like a dream. So that's my second Fender Stratocaster. I could show any number of records. Like I said, I've got a lot that have Stratocasters in them. I could show Hendrix because I've already shown Clapton, but I'm not going to do that. Richie Valens. This is an original first pressing of his album. I believe it came out like a month after he died, something like that. And you can actually see him with his Fender Stratocaster. Next, we have a guitar that I really, really love. This is my take on a Fender Esquire, which is the single pickup version of the Telecaster. This body is a solid 3-piece walnut. It was actually built by a good friend of mine, and I bought the body off of him, and then I sanded it and lacquered it and buffed it and whatever. I did a little bit different finish on it. It's a satin finish as opposed to a gloss, and I think it looks really nice. That is a Lawler Specialty Telecaster bridge pickup, which is Lawler's answer to the original 1952 Telecaster pickup. I wanted this to be sort of as close to an original early 50s Esquire as possible. It has a Bakelite pickguard as opposed to plastic. Bakelite is what Fender used back in the day. It has a flame maple neck. Again, it has my logo on it. I don't know if I have any records that have a Fender Esquire on them. I think the most famous Esquire player that I can think of is Luther Perkins, who was the guitar player for Johnny Cash. So if you've got any early Johnny Cash records, sort of up to the, mid to late 60s, I think he died in like the late 60s. Any of the early stuff, Folsom Prison Blues, he's playing an Esquire. All right, that Sunburst Telecaster in there was my preferred guitar for damn near a decade. It's the one that I played nonstop. That is a 2000 Mexican Fender Telecaster. It's the 52 reissue. I love it. It still plays like a dream. I got this guitar. I had a Tokai Love Rock, which is the Japanese knockoff of the Fender Les Paul that I guess I got this because I had a Tokai Love Rock, which is the Japanese knockoff of the Les Paul, which I guess Gibson sued for, and those are highly sought after. My local guitar store knew that I had one, and we did a nice trade, and it worked out well. This was back in 2001, 2002, I think. So I've always loved this guitar. Nothing special, just a standard 52 reissue Mexican, but plays like a dream. I have a lot of Fender Telecasters, so I'll show you a bunch of records that have Telecasters on them. Bruce Springsteen, born in the USA. Bruce loves playing his Telecaster. His is a I think a mid 50s Telecaster that I'm sure has been heavily modded since then. I don't think it has all the original internal guts in it, but that's still his guitar of choice, is his Telecaster. So that butterscotch blonde Telly in the middle is my pride and joy. It's a 1978 Telecaster, all original. It's seen its fair share of wear and tear, but I love it. I would run into a burning building to save it. I always wanted a butterscotch blonde Telly. I can't afford anything from the 60s because they're far too expensive, so I settled on something from the 70s. Got it for a great price about 10 or 15 years ago. I've played it ever since. It's heavy as hell, but I don't mind. So you've just seen my pride and joy, my 1978 butterscotch blonde Telly. I'm going to show this record. This is the James Gang. Joe Walsh I think of him as a Strat player. I mean, he plays a lot of guitars, but I see him play a lot of Strats. But in the early days, he was a Telecaster man. Um, Funk 49, which is, I think, one of Joe Walsh's best songs. He played I believe it's an early 50s Telecaster. Looks similar to mine, but 20 years older than mine, 25 years older than mine. There's a lot of debate on the internet how he achieved that tone, that there may have been some wiring mods made to it to alter the tone circuit. And there's a lot of debate as to what kind of amp he played it through. But nevertheless, 100% on Funk 49, Joe Walsh is playing a Telecaster. Next up is my California Series Tele. It looks like it's orange in this light, but it's actually Fiesta Red. The California Series Tele is an interesting beast. They were only made for a year in 1997. They also made California Series Strats as well that year. And the bodies and necks were made at the plant in Corona, California, and then they were shipped down to the plant in Mexico, where they were painted, because I guess the Mexican plant had a state-of-the-art paint shop, and then they were shipped back to Corona for assembly. So they do say made in America, but they're sort of a hybrid. But the quality on them is as good as the Americans, but the price was lower. And as I understand from what I've read, they sold so well, they sort of outsold the American standards that year, so they were discontinued. Now, this is a fat Tele. I do not have the original pickups. Someone had put stupid pickups in it, so I changed it. This is a Lawler BS Bridge, sort of a high output single coil. And then the neck is a humbucker-sized single coil that sort of has the output of a P90, and these are both Lawlers. This thing's a tone monster. It sounds amazing. Okay, so that was my fat Tele, as it's nicknamed. Fat Teles are Teles that have a humbucker in the neck. Probably the most famous Telecaster player, maybe, in the world, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. This is Hot Rocks. I don't have many Rolling Stones records because I'm not a big fan. He's got a lot of Telecasters, but his most famous one is, he's nicknamed it Macabre. It's a 50s Tele that has been modified, let's say, over the years. It's had a lot done to it. He doesn't play with the low E string. That's the thicker string on the top, the bass string. He only plays with 5 strings. And his neck pickup, which was originally, people think, a single coil pickup, was replaced with a humbucker pickup, making it a fat Tele. So that's why I'm showing this record, because I have a fat Tele as well. And then last but not least is the first guitar that I ever built. And this is a spalted maple top, swamp ash body Telecaster with a bird's eye maple neck. So the body came from a builder in Quebec called Spalt King Guitars, and the neck is a Warmoth neck. It's the only guitar that I built that doesn't have Lawler pickups. These are just Fender noiseless. They sound okay. Someday I may change them to Lawler. But this was the first time I ever built a guitar, and I think it's beautiful, and it sounds really nice too. It plays very well. So, spalted maple. Spalt is a fungal rot that happens in a tree and kills it. But once a tree is dead, the fungus is inert. And last but not least, it's another Telecaster record. Crossroads, soundtrack to the movie. The guitar battle at the end, Ralph Macchio, well, throughout the whole movie, Ralph Macchio plays a Telecaster. You can see it right there. It's actually not him playing it. It's Steve Vai. He played all the guitar parts, but it's an example of a record that has Telecaster all over it. So I hope you found that a little bit interesting for those of you that are guitar players. I hope you like my guitar collection. For those of you that aren't guitar players, maybe you found it interesting. You can maybe listen to some of those records and maybe get an idea what some of these guitars would sound like. I'd play them for you, but then everyone would be jealous about how shitty of a guitar player I am. Also, it's 1 o'clock in the morning and my wife and son are asleep, so I'm not going to play them. That's all for me today, everybody. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Northern_Revolutions. Catch you on the flip side.